TSMC just posted $35.7 billion in one quarter. Here's why that should terrify you. The single company that controls whether the AI revolution lives or dies. The official story. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company just reported first quarter 2026 revenue of $35.7 billion, a 35% year-over-year surge that crushed analyst expectations. The narrative from Wall Street is simple: AI demand is insatiable, TSMC is the primary beneficiary, and the chip boom shows no signs of slowing. Shares surged past 2,000 TWD. Analysts raised price targets. Everyone celebrated. But behind the champagne toasts lies a story that should keep every technology executive, investor, and policymaker awake at night. What's actually happening? TSMC isn't just a chip manufacturer. It is the chip manufacturer. The company controls roughly 60% of the global foundry market. But that number dramatically understates its actual power. At the cutting edge, the 3nm and 5nm nodes where every AI accelerator, every flagship smartphone processor, and every advanced server chip gets made, TSMC's market share exceeds 90%. Let that sink in. 9 out of 10 cutting-edge chips on Earth are manufactured by a single company, on a single island, 100 miles from a military superpower that claims that island as its own territory. The $35.7 billion quarter isn't just a revenue number. It's a measurement of how deeply the entire global technology stack has become dependent on one facility operator in one of the most geopolitically precarious locations on the planet. Follow the money and you'll see something remarkable happening inside TSMC's customer base. Nvidia, the company whose GPUs power virtually every AI training cluster on Earth, is on track to become TSMC's single largest customer in 2026, overtaking Apple for the first time. Nvidia is projected to account for roughly 20% of TSMC's revenue, compared to Apple's declining 16%. But the real choke point isn't even the chip fabrication itself. It's a process called CoWoS, chip-on-wafer-on-substrate, TSMC's advanced packaging technology that stitches together the GPU dies with high-bandwidth memory to create the actual AI accelerators that companies like Nvidia, AMD, and Broadcom sell. Nvidia has locked up approximately 60% of TSMC's entire CoWoS capacity through 2027. That's roughly 595,000 wafer equivalents per year. This means that even if you designed a superior AI chip tomorrow, you literally cannot get it manufactured and packaged at scale. Nvidia hasn't just won the AI chip race. It has bought the racetrack and locked the gates behind it. TSMC warned both Nvidia and Broadcom that capacity is maxed out. Broadcom publicly flagged that constrained foundry capacity at TSMC will limit their chip supply well into 2026. AMD and every specialized AI chip startup find themselves in a bidding war for the remaining 40% of CoWoS supply. Some of them will simply not get allocation. The price increases tell the story Wall Street doesn't want to hear. Semi-analysis analyst Sarvan Kundajajala called TSMC's price hikes a big factor in the revenue beat. TSMC isn't just shipping more chips. It's charging significantly more per chip because it can. When you're the only factory in town, you set the price. The evidence trail. The financial fingerprints are everywhere. TSMC guided for gross margins of 63% to 65% for Q1, up dramatically from historical norms. These aren't the margins of a company facing real competition. These are the margins of a monopoly. Consider what happened during Q1 2026. The Iran conflict erupted during the quarter's early weeks. Global supply chains convulsed. Memory prices spiked. Smartphone and PC markets took hits from component shortages. And through all of it, TSMC's AI segment carried the entire company's results. When a single product category at a single company is carrying the technology industry through a geopolitical crisis, that's not strength. That's fragility disguised as performance. The customer concentration data is alarming. TSMC's top 5 customers, Nvidia, Apple, AMD, Qualcomm, and Broadcom, account for an estimated 60 to 65% of total revenue. And those 5 companies collectively represent the processing backbone of virtually every AI system, every smartphone, and every cloud server in the Western world. TSMC has committed $165 billion to build a gigafab cluster in Arizona. The first fab is operational. The second fab's construction is complete with equipment installation planned for Q3 2026. But TSMC's own CEO, C.C. Wei, admitted that building in Arizona has taken twice as long as similar facilities in Taiwan and costs 30 to 50% more. The Arizona fabs will produce a fraction of TSMC's total output. They're a hedge, not a solution. The U.S. government contributed $6.6 billion through the CHIPS Act, with another $5 billion in proposed loans. That's $11.6 billion of taxpayer money against a $165 billion project, roughly 7 cents on every dollar. American taxpayers are subsidizing a Taiwanese company to partially mitigate a risk that exists because the entire industry failed to diversify for 3 decades. Meanwhile, TSMC is expanding CoWoS capacity by roughly 100% over the next 2 years. But here's the catch: the equipment is specialized, incredibly expensive, and requires nanometer-level precision. A misalignment of just a few nanometers renders a multi-thousand-dollar chip package worthless. You can't just throw money at this problem. Why this framing serves them? Every player in this ecosystem benefits from the current narrative. TSMC benefits from scarcity because scarcity means pricing power. Their 63 to 65% gross margins would collapse if real competition existed. Every quarter of supply constraint is a quarter of premium pricing. Nvidia benefits because the CoWoS lockup creates an artificial moat around its GPU business. Even if AMD designed a better chip, AMD can't get enough packaged at TSMC. The capacity lock-in is as powerful as any patent portfolio. Nvidia's $4.5 trillion market cap isn't just built on better chips. It's built on better capacity contracts. Wall Street benefits because the AI demand is infinite. Narrative justifies ever higher price targets. Analysts covering TSMC get to upgrade their models every quarter as revenue beats keep coming. Nobody gets promoted for asking uncomfortable questions about single point of failure risk. The US government benefits from the CHIPS Act narrative because it looks proactive. Politicians can point to Arizona fabs and claim they're solving the semiconductor dependency problem. But $6.6 billion in subsidies for a project that will take a decade to reach full capacity, while 90% of cutting-edge production remains on an island in the Taiwan Strait, isn't a solution. It's a press release. And TSMC's customers benefit from the status quo because switching costs are astronomical. Moving to Samsung Foundry or Intel means accepting inferior yields, higher defect rates, and longer development timelines. The technology gap is real, and it widens with each process node. The only people who don't benefit from this arrangement are consumers and taxpayers who bear the risk. If a typhoon hits Hsinchu Science Park, if cross-strait tensions escalate, if a single critical chemical in TSMC's supply chain gets disrupted, the entire AI revolution grinds to a halt. Analysts estimate a disruption of Taiwan's semiconductor output could cost the global economy $2.5 trillion in annual losses. What happens next? 3 scenarios are now in play, and none of them are particularly comfortable. Scenario 1, the current trajectory holds. TSMC continues to dominate, AI demand continues to grow, and the concentration risk deepens. Every quarter of record revenue makes the eventual disruption more catastrophic. This is the scenario Wall Street is pricing in, and it's also the most dangerous. Scenario 2, geopolitical reality forces the issue. China's reunification rhetoric hasn't softened. The recent Iran conflict demonstrated how quickly regional crises can cascade. If cross-strait tensions escalate even modestly, semiconductor stocks would crater and supply chains would seize. TSMC has reportedly developed contingency plans to disable its most advanced equipment remotely in the event of a Chinese invasion, the so-called silicon shield becoming a silicon-scorched earth. Scenario 3, slow diversification eventually works. Intel's foundry ambitions mature, Samsung closes the yield gap, TSMC's Arizona and Japan fabs reach meaningful scale. This is the optimistic path, but it requires at minimum 5 to 7 more years and hundreds of billions in additional investment. And during those years, the concentration risk remains. The CoWoS bottleneck adds another dimension. As AI models get larger and demand more compute, the advanced packaging capacity becomes even more critical. TSMC is doubling CoWoS capacity, but if AI demand grows at the 60% CAGR that TSMC itself projects, doubling capacity simply maintains the current shortage. We're running to stay in place. The memory shortage compounds the problem. AI chips need high bandwidth memory, which needs advanced packaging, which needs CoWoS capacity, which is constrained by TSMC's physical manufacturing limits. It's choke points all the way down. What you should do about it? If you're an investor, understand that TSMC's record revenue isn't just a growth story. It's a risk story. The company's P/E ratio prices in continued dominance, but doesn't adequately price in tail risks that could eliminate $500 billion in market cap overnight. If you're a technology executive, start asking hard questions about your supply chain's dependency on a single node in Taiwan. Every product roadmap that assumes TSMC availability is a product roadmap built on hope. If you're a policymaker, recognize that the CHIPS Act is a down payment, not a solution. Real semiconductor sovereignty requires sustained investment at levels that would make current subsidies look like rounding errors. And if you're a consumer, understand that the AI tools you're using today, the chatbots, the image generators, the coding assistants, all of them trace back to chips made in a handful of buildings in Hsinchu, Taiwan. That's not a supply chain. That's a prayer. TSMC's $35.7 billion quarter is a monument to engineering brilliance and strategic positioning. It is also, simultaneously, the most visible symptom of the most dangerous single point of failure in the global economy. The question isn't whether this concentration risk will matter. It's whether we'll address it before it's too late.